20,000 catalogued finds have come out of 8 pits in southwest China, and not one of them carries a single word of writing. A bronze figure taller than a man. A mask so wide it will not fit through an ordinary doorway. Elephant tusks stacked over the top of it all like firewood. Almost everything down there was burnt and broken before it was buried, and for 40 years everyone agreed that was done on purpose. In 2026, the people who run the excavation said it probably was not. Welcome back to Embers Chronicles. Tonight, a Bronze Age city that moved metal across 1,000 kilometers and raised a rampart up to 50 meters thick. And an explanation that has now changed twice in 4 years, published by the people holding the trowels. The place is called Sanxingdui. It sits on a flat river plain in Sichuan province, in the southwest of China, about 40 kilometers north of Chengdu. Until 1929, nobody knew it was there. It is a humid, overcast plain of bamboo and rice, with the Longmen Mountains standing straight out of the flat ground to the northwest. Ordinary farmland. Everything in this video came out from under it. The first person to find anything there was a farmer. In the spring of 1929, a man named Yan Dao Chung and his son were digging a pit for a water wheel to move water into their fields. About 2 meters down, their tools struck stone slabs. The slabs formed a lining. Inside that lining were more than 400 objects of jade and polished stone. Almost all of it was lost. The find was broken up and sold off across the antique markets of Chengdu, where dealers came to know it simply as Guanghan jade. Most of those pieces have never been traced. In March 1934, an American museum archaeologist named David Crockett Graham brought a team and dug for about 10 days. He did not get to finish. The work was cut short by looting. The site was being robbed before anybody understood what it was. Then it went quiet for more than 50 years. In July 1986, workers were cutting clay for a brick factory on the same plain. Their spades came up against jade. What they had walked into is now called Pit 1. A month later, 20 to 30 meters away, they found a second one. Pit 1 held 567 objects. Pit 2 held 6,095. How old is it? A team at Peking University pulled more than 200 datable samples out of 6 of those pits, and most of them were too badly preserved to use. 4 pits finally gave a usable answer. There is a 95% probability that they were filled between 1200 and 1000 years before the Common Era. That puts this city in exactly the same centuries as the Shang dynasty. The Shang is the earliest Chinese dynasty we can confirm from its own written records. And nothing about this place looks anything like it. What came out of Pit 2 is unlike anything else from the ancient world. Faces. Frontal, rigidly symmetrical, with brows like knife blades and mouths cut in a thin closed line, with the corners turned up. The largest is the one people remember. 138 centimeters wide, 66 centimeters high, 71 kilograms of bronze. The ears and the nose were cast separately and locked into place, and the eye cylinders were built from 16 interlocking pieces. And the eyes are not eyes. They are cylinders. They come straight out of the sockets and project 16 centimeters forward, like the barrels of 2 telescopes. Nobody ever wore it. There are square holes cut through the sides. It was fixed to a wooden post, and it faced outward, at whoever was standing in front of it. One version of the mask has something else. A dragon-shaped ornament rises out of a square socket in the middle of its forehead, cut through like fretwork, its head meeting the bridge of the nose and its tail curling back over the crown. You will have seen these faces, used to argue for visitors from somewhere else. The curators read them as gods, and around 500 objects from this site are shaped as eyes. A mask this size, bolted to a post, is not something a person puts on. Then there are the heads. 57 of them came out of the first 2 pits alone, 30 centimeters or so, hollow, cast in separate pieces and joined. And they come in 2 kinds. Some have a flat top and a thick braid hanging down the back. The rest have a rounded top and the hair coiled into a bun, held with a pin. 57 faces, and exactly 2 hairstyles between them. They were not left as bare metal either. There was black pigment worked into the brows and the eyes, and cinnabar red on the lips, the nostrils and the ears. Every earlobe is pierced. Only 4 of those 57 wore gold. A face of hammered foil, about 85% gold, glued on with lacquer and lime. The eyes and brows are cut out of the foil, so the dark bronze shows through them. 2 loose gold masks have also come out of the ground, and the 2 of them make a strange comparison. One from pit 5 is only half a mask. One from pit 3 is complete. The half weighs 286 grams. The complete one weighs about 100 grams. The complete mask is lighter than the broken piece of the other, because it is thin as a butterfly's wing, while the pit 5 fragment is thick enough to hold its own shape. And then a figure that is almost impossible to photograph properly. 2 meters and 60 centimeters from the ground to the top of its crown, and about 180 kilograms. It stands barefoot, with rings around the ankles, in a robe of 3 layers. Its crown carries a sun at the front, and its hands are 2 enormous hollow rings, one above the other, and they do not line up. They are offset, as though they were closed around something curved. Whatever it was holding is gone. There was also a tree. Almost 4 meters of it survives, and the top is missing, so the original may have stood close to 5 meters. It was rebuilt from 2,479 separate fragments. 3 tiers, 3 branches to a tier. 9 branches, 9 birds, 27 fruits. And coming down the trunk head first, a dragon, its body twisted like rope, its hind legs formed as human hands. And out of pit 1 came a golden staff, 142 centimeters long, wrapped in about 463 grams of gold foil around a wooden core that has long since carbonized. On one section, someone engraved 2 human faces wearing 5 pointed crowns. Beside them, birds and fish, each pair pierced through by a single arrow. It is clearly a message. There is no writing on it at all. And notice what shape they came up in. The big hollow pieces were crushed and torn open. The small solid figures and the jade beads came up almost perfect. For 40 years, nobody thought that meant anything. One more thing is true of nearly every object in this video. It came out of the ground burnt and broken and buried. The argument of the last 4 years is about who did that and whether they meant to. And that is the thing that has never gone away. After 40 years of digging, close to 20,000 numbered finds, and 8 separate pits, there is not one line of writing. And be careful with that number, because almost everyone quotes it wrong. The catalogued count includes fragments. When roughly 13,000 pieces had been numbered, Only about 3,000 of them were relatively complete objects. Anyone telling you 13,000 treasures is counting broken pieces as treasures. There are marks scratched on pottery, and people have tried hard to turn them into a script. They do not form sequences. They have never been deciphered. Nobody has shown they are language at all. Now set that against the size of the place. The site covers 12 square kilometers. The walled core alone is 3.6 square kilometers. The rampart around it is 35 to 50 meters thick at the base. It is built of tamped earth in visible horizontal layers. A city that size, casting bronze on that scale, moving metal across 1,000 kilometers of country, and it kept no records that survive. So if the writing cannot tell us who these people were, the next place to look is the people themselves. And there are no royal tombs. Not one. This place cast bronze figures at nearly life-size and covered faces in gold, and there is no grave anywhere for whoever ran it. We have 57 bronze faces of these people, and no way to tell which of them ruled. The archaeologist who led the excavation put it bluntly. Did people of that era simply not die? So we go to the pits, where everything else about these people ended up. 8 of them. Thousands of objects, burnt and broken and stacked in layers. And not one human bone. Set that beside what was happening at the same time. 1,200 kilometers to the northeast lay Anyang, the capital of the Shang. Over roughly 2 centuries, the Shang put more than 13,000 people into the ground as offerings. We are not guessing. Their own oracle bones recorded in writing. And isotopes measured in 68 of those victims put nearly all of them outside Anyang. They were brought in from somewhere else and kept for years before they were killed. At Sanxingdui, the count is 0. Which brings us to the name. In 1986, the excavators called these features sacrificial pits. It was a working label written in a field notebook, and it hardened into fact. The label is openly contested now. Sun Hua of Peking University refuses it and calls them burial pits. Western archaeologists have been putting sacrificial in quotation marks for decades. The official Chinese name has not changed. To be exact about it, there is one cemetery. Outside the western rampart, a place called Ren Sheng Tsun, there are 29 graves. Ordinary ones. But they are 700 to 1,000 years older than the pits. They tell us nothing about the people who filled the pits. As for why there is no writing, Lei Yu, who runs the excavation station, has offered the simplest answer. That they wrote on silk, or lacquered wood or bamboo. Organic material almost never lasts 3,000 years in that ground. So who were they? Not a people who appeared out of nowhere. That idea has been dead for years, and the evidence against it is directly underneath. Below the first phase of the city lies the Bao Dun culture, which was on this plain from about 2,700 to 1,700 years before the Common Era. 10 walled settlements. One of them covers 245 hectares. In 2024, archaeologists found a jade workshop on the site. Unfinished blanks, waste flakes, tools. These objects were not carried in from anywhere. They were made here. They were not cut off from the world either. The lead in their bronze is highly radiogenic, the same strange kind that turns up in the earliest bronzes from the Shang capital at Anyang. That points to a shared metal network of some sort, though chemists still argue over whether it means one mine or several. Where that lead was mined, nobody has ever located. As for daily life, we know some of it. Elephants moved through that landscape, or the ivory was carried up from further south. 850 tusks came out of those 8 pits. They are identified as Asian elephant from their shape, but the collagen inside them has broken down completely, so nothing biological is left to confirm it with. They wove silk. Most of it survives only as mineralized traces on the bronze, though a few pieces from Pit 8 held their weave well enough to be read. And they kept cowrie shells in the thousands, a species that only lives in warm salt water, hundreds of kilometers from any coast Sichuan touches. A word about how these finds get reported. In 2021, a second huge mask came out of Pit 3 and was announced as the largest ever found. It is narrower than the one found in 1986, and it weighs less. The deputy director of the museum explained why. When the 1986 mask came out of the ground, only the chin and the ears had survived. Restorers rebuilt the rest from estimated proportions, so its measurements are not strictly reliable. The Pit 3 mask is the largest one that survived intact. People always ask whether Sanxingdui was Chinese. It sat inside the network of exchange that eventually became China, and the metal proves it. Culturally, it looked like nothing else in that world. And the people living there did not think of themselves as Chinese, because in their lifetime the idea did not exist yet. That makes what happened to all of it stranger, not clearer. Because almost everything in those pits went into the ground already damaged. Broken, then burnt, then buried. That was the reading for 40 years. The jade comes out chalky white because the fire turned the mineral inside it into something else. The cracks came later, as groundwater ate away at the altered stone. The bronze comes out warped and blistered, and some of it slumped in the heat and fused into lumps. The heads went in as well. Faces that were probably mounted on bodies of wood or clay, the sockets at their necks empty, whatever they sat on gone for 3,000 years. The fill itself tells you something. A greasy black and gray ash layer with burnt animal bone through it. Thousands of cowrie shells. And above all of it, layers of elephant tusks stacked like cordwood across the bronze. Ivory on top, bronze underneath. In pit after pit, somebody was following a procedure. The second excavation looked nothing like the first. Sealed glass chambers, controlled air, technicians in protective suits working from suspended platforms. 34 institutes were brought in. Pits 1 and 2 were dug in 1986. Pits 3, 4, 7, and 8 were not opened until 2020 through 2022. 35 years apart by different people, using different methods. And fragments from 6 different pits fit back together into the same objects. Bronze that had sat in a museum since 1986 completed a piece pulled out of the ground in 2021. One object broken apart, scattered into separate holes in the ground, which means those holes were not filled over decades or centuries. They were filled together. This was one event, and not in panic. Tong Fei, who directed the program, found the objects laid down in the same order of layers every time. Whoever did this was not working in panic and knew the sequence. And the first piece of evidence against the old answer did not come from the objects at all. It came from the dirt. In December 2023, a study in the journal Heritage Science tested the soil beside the ash layers. If material had burned inside those pits, the surrounding earth would show it. Fire rebuilds the iron minerals in soil. It turns the earth redder and far more magnetic, and that change normally stays put for thousands of years. The soil showed nothing of the kind. Nothing burned inside those pits. The fire was somewhere close by, and only the aftermath was carried over and put in the ground. The 2026 report describes material heated to a range of different temperatures, which is what one big, uncontrolled blaze does. Then in 2026, a paper appeared in the Journal of Archaeological Science. Its title says everything about where this field now stands. Sacrificial pit or not. The deposition history of Pit 4. Among the authors is Ran Hong Lin. He runs the Sanxingdui Archaeology Institute and led the digging of these pits. The people who own the excavation are the ones publishing the argument against the label their own predecessors gave it. And then, in late July 2026, at the symposium marking 40 years since the pits were found, the Sichuan Institute said the thing out loud. The bronzes may never have been smashed on purpose at all. They may have been wrecked when a building burned down on top of them. Look at what survived. The large hollow bronzes are wrecked. The small solid figures and the jade beads came through almost untouched. Damage tracks fragility, which is what a building coming down does to a room full of objects. It is suggestive rather than proof, because a person with a stone would also break the thin, hollow things first. There is more. Blocks of baked red earth in the fill, which the excavators read as pieces of a wall or a floor. And about 90% of the plant material in the ash of Pit 4 is bamboo. They think it came off the roof. And not everyone reads it that way. Some of the damage looks aimed rather than accidental, and that argument has not gone away. A falling roof does not choose what it breaks. Ran Hong Lin chose his words carefully. The damage, he said, should have been caused by an accidental fire that destroyed the ritual vessels originally displayed in the temple. An accident. After 40 years of people asking what the ritual meant, one possible answer is that there was no ritual. There was a fire, and then people cleaned up. But that is one archaeologist's reading, and it is not the only one on the table. In September 2025, Sun Hua of Peking University published a different answer, and the two are not compatible. Sun Hua does not see an accident. He sees a war inside the city, fought over who would rule it. His evidence is the city itself. Sections of the walls torn down. The water system through the city altered. The ritual precincts gone from the record. And the population leaving in large numbers. He also has an argument against the ritual reading that is hard to answer. Ritual, he points out, is regular behavior. Communities do it, ethnic groups do it, states do it, and they do it repeatedly. It cannot be carried out in a single act. As for who lost that war, Sun Hua's proposal is the reason this whole video kept showing you those bronze heads. He suggests two rival elites, a religious one and a secular one. And he says you can tell them apart by their hair. The priests wear it coiled up and pinned. The rulers wear it in a braid down the back, which are exactly the two kinds of bronze head that came out of those pits. If he is right, you have been looking at both sides of the argument the entire time. They are sitting in the same museum, on the same shelf, 30 centimeters apart. Even the words they use are different. Sun Hua will not write sacrificial pits at all. Ran Hong Lin still uses the term, with a new meaning inside it. 40 years on, The two men leading this argument cannot agree on what to call the holes in the ground. Either way, the city ended. The center of power moved about 40 kilometers south to a place called Jinsha, and Sanxingdui stopped being a city around 3,000 years ago. Two answers: a fire or a war. Both of them published since the autumn of 2025, and both from individual scholars rather than from a settled field. One last number puts all of it in place. Lei Yu, who runs the excavation station, has said that about 1,000th of the site has been dug. 1 part in 1,000. Everything you have just seen, every mask, every head, that tree, the gold, all of it came out of that fraction. The rest is still under 12 square kilometers of Sichuan farmland. Under 20,000 square meters out of 12 square kilometers. So what do you think happened at Sanxingdui? A temple that burned by accident and was cleared away? Or a city that turned on itself and buried what it destroyed? The people who dug it up have changed their answer twice in 4 years. Tell us your theory in the comments below.